You write in your book, the world is drowning in a sea of debt, and the derivatives are the centerpiece or the pinnacle. The official statistics are shocking and almost unbelievable, but 1.5 quadrillion worth of derivatives exists and are traded on the exchanges. And the number's absolutely ridiculous, you cite, because the total world GDP, according to the World Bank, is only $60 trillion. Now, you write that means on top of the already existing fractional reserve banking system, there's 25 times more derivatives than there is real wealth in the world. It's derivatives that's going to bring this system down, isn't it?
Yes, that is the most dangerous thing that we face, far greater than wars, far greater than hunger and famine. The derivatives could collapse our entire system, and we leave it in the hands of people who are unelected and people who are only out there for their own profits. So I believe that they could have pushed too far. They can go too far, and this may be a big mistake on their part. I believe what they're planning on doing is using these derivatives to hold us hostage. They tried that with the bailouts in 2008 and beyond, the financial crisis. And I think they'll try this again with the derivatives. But ultimately, there isn't enough taxation, there isn't enough bailout money to go around. It just is mathematically impossible. We cannot allow this to happen. We need to implement Glass-Steagall or a similar law which completely wipes these derivatives right off the map. These are fraudulent. There is no asset behind them of real value. If we allow these derivatives to continue to expand, we are certainly doomed.
Well, David, let's talk about the success or failure of this system. On page 16 of your book, you've got a great quote here from Franklin Roosevelt. The quote is, "The success or failure of any government must be measured by the well-being of its citizens." This is a system that has 45 million people on food stamps. The unemployment rate, if you look at John Williams' statistics, is well over 20%. This is a system that really by any measure is a failure. You say the numbers tell it all. Why don't you share with the audience what that means?
Essentially, the government-provided statistics are completely fraudulent. It is criminal, the numbers that they tell us. A person who doesn't work for 1 year, can't find work for 1 year, is now wiped off of the unemployment numbers. This doesn't make any sense. But the people read the numbers they see on the news, they see them getting better, and for a moment in time, they think that everything is okay. These numbers that they're providing us with don't match up to the real economy. Our jobs have been shipped overseas. All of our high-paying jobs, we're left with low-paying jobs if you can get any. We need a strong middle class. This goes for any of the Western nations. Without a strong middle class, you don't have anyone to buy your goods. You don't have a strong nation. Unfortunately, that's the path we've headed on for too long, and we need to reverse the trend sooner rather than later.
David, what inspired you to write your book? Because I just want everybody to know that, when I interview folks and we say, oh, so-and-so's written a book, I'm not sure how many people click through and buy that book or read that book. But in your case, this condensed version of the book that you have for free on your website is so wonderfully readable. I think it's a great piece of information. It's a great tool people can use to wake up the uninformed because of the way you've written it. What inspired you to write this book?
Well, I started just by reading financial books and got into the Austrian economics. And then I would read other books that were, Keynesian. And I disagreed with it. I gave it a chance and I've read a few, but I just completely disagreed with it. So I kept getting into more of the Austrian side. And so I take notes while I read, and the notes piled up, and I decided that I could make a book out of this. So there I was. I finished my book, but I needed to do it in a different way than most books because I found starting from the beginning, it was hard to really catch up to learn. So the way I used diagrams and charts make it really easy for people to learn. It starts you from the very beginning. You don't need to know anything about finance to learn. And I give people a 40-page version of the book because I know that not everyone has the money to buy the book. Not everyone wants to invest the time to read the book, but at least 40 pages they can flip through, they can learn a few things, and hopefully wake up a few people along the way.
Well, let's leave everybody with a glimmer of hope here, and this is a two-part glimmer of hope. Let's talk about ownership of physical silver and ownership of physical gold. Okay, there's one. We can talk about that. But I want to ask you about a tipping point, too, because I think people are waking up in droves to the evil of this current debt-based economic system. Are we nearing a tipping point, in your view, whether it be through the derivatives, bringing the whole system down on its own, or people trying to migrate out of this system through ownership of physical silver and gold? Do you see any tipping point, any glimmer of hope at all?
Yes, definitely. If you look at the statistics, physical gold and silver are very difficult to find around the world, especially in Europe and other places in Asia where people buy a lot of jewelry as their source of precious metals. These stock-related gold, silver, they're not doing as well. And frankly, in the futures markets, it may be fraudulent. So a real asset like physical gold and silver maintains value. It has for thousands of years. Regardless of what happens to this system, gold and silver will have value on the other side. That's why it's important to have a significant portion of your portfolio in physical gold and silver. Like I said, they will maintain value wherever happens in the next turnover of our economy, the recession, depression, or whatever happens to the monetary system. Physical gold and silver will be your best assets, hands down.
Well said. I think that we are reaching a tipping point because people are starting to understand how this system works and how fraudulent it is, and the men behind the curtain have been revealed. And in your book, I think it's on page 29 or 30, you have this great quote from Henry Ford, which people have heard before, but let's leave it with this. Quote, "People of the nation do not understand our banking and monetary system, for if they did, I believe there would be a revolution before tomorrow morning." And I think that's what we're seeing. We're seeing people embrace phrases at rallies like "end the Fed," "liberty now." This is the glimmer of hope, isn't it, David?
This is huge. Now, with every action, there's equal and opposite reaction. As these elite push harder and harder upon us, we grow and expand because they have to come out into the open. And we see this. We are expanding our efforts. Ron Paul, in his last election cycle, was barely existent. This time, he's the real frontrunner, despite the fact they are cheating him out of this presidency. He's still the top contender here. He's the only one promoting liberty. We need to follow the Ron Paul revolution and the principles that apply to it. That is our goal.
Well, David, you're an interesting guy. We sure do appreciate your time. If people want to find out more, get your free book, or actually get the book that you published, they can visit you where? Is it themoneygps.com?
Yes, the free book is available at themoneygps.com, and the full version is available on Amazon.
Great. Well, what's next for you, David? What are you working on?
I am working on a second book entitled The Health GPS, and it's still in the research phase, so it won't be out until next year. But it will, in the same format as the Money GPS, will show people the dangers of genetically modified foods, vaccines, and along those lines there.
Well, you must be familiar with the work of Jeffrey Smith then, huh, and his GMO research?
Absolutely. Seeds of Deception was one of the first books I read years ago. So, he is one of the most detailed authors you'll find, and it's very hard to deny the facts.
Yeah, no, he's a brilliant, brilliant guy. I really respect him. And in fact, a movie that he didn't produce, but I think he was associated with on the fringes, was The World According to Monsanto. Which, if you haven't seen it, you got to watch The World According to Monsanto. I mean, I put Monsanto up there as one of the top 5 most evil corporations on the planet. What's your take on that?
Yes, Monsanto, in my opinion, is the most evil. what they're doing with genetically modified foods could easily collapse the food supply. We have different strains for a reason. If one crop gets a virus or a rootworm or something along these lines, there are various different crops. It's not a problem. But when you have one gene for all crops around the world, if you run into a problem, everyone has that same problem. It is too dangerous what they're doing, and it all comes down to money. They want to patent the seeds. They want to patent life. This is absolutely absurd that it's publicly available information, yet the news will not cover it. We need the alternative media, the real media, to cover it, to expose this. And we are doing that. It's taking some time, but we are making headway.
Yeah, you're right. And we look forward to interviewing you again when you get your new book out. So please do keep in touch. And as soon as your new one comes out on health, we will discuss these topics in greater detail. David Quintieri, we really appreciate your time. Thanks for joining us.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for the opportunity. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Well, that's it, guys. Much more to come. Thanks for tuning in. And visit sgtreport.com for all the latest.